In this video, we'll be covering Python object-oriented programming fundamentals. We'll also cover data structures, dictionaries, and lists using structures such as list comprehensions and dictionary comprehensions to get the information into the dictionaries and the lists. We're going to control the display of the object information onto the screen by use of a drop-down menu in Flet. You're now going to need to grab 5 different graphics and save it in PNG format. I'll put it into a folder called Assets. I have my 5 graphics here. I'll drop it into Assets. At this point, there's a folder called Assets, and in Assets, I have 5 people's names and it ends in PNG. I'm going to create a class to hold the characters. I'll call the class character. We'll set up the init in Python. Image path. Okay, let's set up our data that we're going to use to populate the menu. I'll call it character list for the setup of the initial data, and we will instantiate the objects. First one will be mat, and it's mat.png as the file name. We can look at it. It's mat.png. So I called all the characters the same name as all the file, the image files, the same name as the character. Now that I have the characters in this type of list with instantiated with objects, I'm going to store it into a dictionary using a dictionary comprehension. So, oops, not here. So I'm going to call the name of the dictionary characters, and we're going to use a dictionary comprehension. The dictionary is within these curly brackets. So we're going to set up a character name as the key. The value will be character, and we're going to set up as a for loop for character in the name of the list that we just created, which is character list. look at the for loop first for character in character list. So for character in character list, this character goes back to here to the left of the for. The dictionary is composed of a key and a value separated by a colon. So the key is character.name, which is the first associated property here. Its name. The second one is the actual object. So it's a dictionary of objects where the key is the name of the character. In the drop-down menu, we're going to use this characters. So the first is that the text will be character.name, and now we're going to use a list comprehension, which is for. We'll set up the for loop for character in characters, which is the dictionary that we just created. I think I'm going to change the name of the variable. Maybe I'll call it charac. I'm going to create a method to handle the selection from the drop-down menu. So we'll call this def handle selection, and it'll receive the event. And initially, let's just print the control.value so that we can see in the console, hopefully, when we select the character, it'll pop open there. So there's a property on the drop down for onSelect, and we will handle the selection. This comes right there. Very good. In this lesson, we covered several object-oriented programming concepts. We first create a Python class, and then we can create the objects from the Python class. The class is like a blueprint or a template for creating different types of objects. So the first step is to create the class, which is the blueprint that has the information that you want to store about the character. And the second step is to create an object instance. So you go, it's the name of the class, and then you have the properties or the information that you want to populate the initial class with. There's a special method within the class, and that's called init, and there's 2 underscores here, and there's 2 underscores here. This is automatically run whenever you instantiate the class. It's a little confusing in Python because you're using this self, and we'll use the self for now. So the self.name and the self.image path, they're called instance attributes. You can also set up a none right there. The Python list is a very common data structure, and we're storing multiple objects inside of the list. The index goes from 0 through the maximum number, and you can access the individual instance attributes, such as Matt in this example, with index 0, so it's the first item in the list, and the item that it returns is an object. So there's an instance attribute name that contains mat. In Python, there's a common technique here called a list comprehension. And actually, I find it easier to understand by it's for item in, there's some iterable here, right? So for the name of the variable in this case, it's a list. So for character in the character's value, so this is a dictionary, the characters, but the values, it's iterable. So each time through the dictionary values, it's going to return a character, and then the character then goes to this function, this piece of code here, which will add an option to the drop-down menu with the name of the character. If you put it into a standard for loop, it's for character and characters, so you have the second part first, right? So that's why it's sometimes easier to read the second part. So for character and characters, it's the same thing here. You have to add the options.append here, which you don't need to do in a list comprehension. So it means exactly the same thing. It just saves you an extra line of text here, where this options.append. The dictionary comprehension is the same thing. So the dictionary is a key value. The key part, the main part here is for item in iterable. So for character in character list, it's going to set up this for loop, and every time through the for loop, it's going to return a character. And the character, you can strip out the name of the character, or you can pull out the name. Character.name is the key, and it's going to correspond to the actual character. So the keys here is the character names, which are strings, and the value, the second part after the colon, is the character, which is the object. When the drop-down menu is selected, we're running this function here, handle selection. This is the drop-down component, right? It's right here. We have the drop-down. There's a property here on select which is built into drop-down. When on select, when you select something, this portion runs, and we created a function here, handle selection, which currently just prints out the value that you selected. So Susan, and it will print out Susan. It's useful for event handlers. When this is selected, it sends the event to this function here. The function is right here. So it receives the event. There's no E here, but it sends the event over. Then it receives the event, and right now what we're doing is we're printing it out. In the future, we're going to change the state of the application. We covered object creation. This is the class, and we're creating the object from the class right there. Boom, boom. There's an init constructor that initializes the object attributes. So all it means is that there's a function called init, and it looks kind of strange because it has the underscores on it, but it's just a function, and the function is just run automatically. In Python, there's also this bit of odd thing where you have self, which refers to the instance itself. Create a list of objects. Right there. List comprehension. To to recap, this is a list comprehension. You look for the for loop first. So for charac in characters.value, it's actually iterating, in this case, through a dictionary, and it's going to fill this list with a set of drop-down options. Of the dictionary comprehension, we're creating a dictionary from a for loop for character and character list, which is a list of objects. And every time it's going to push it back there. The key is set up from the property of the name of the character, and we know the first one is positional, so the first one is name. That's why it's name right there. And the second part of it, the value, is the actual instantiated value of the object. If you're confused about list comprehensions, objects, dictionary comprehensions, or any of the concepts here, what I suggest you do is delete all the code and start or save it to a different file, and then start from the beginning with everything turned off, the cursor tab, the AI, and see whether you can recreate it yourself, and just repeat the process 5 to 10 times. If you don't already know dictionary comprehensions, you may not get the concept, and I think you should learn the concept. So I think you need to practice it. You probably won't get it just by watching the video and practicing it a few times. Most people, in reality, they're probably going through it 5 to 10 times. In the next video, we're going to cover some Python object-oriented programming concepts so that we can use the drop-down menu to control what appears on the screen and provide some information on the characters that we'll be selecting with the drop-down menu on the screen.